Chris Landry, I hope you're having a great Wednesday. We missed you last week. It's good to be back, man.
Yeah, good to be back with you, Ryan. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, so we are. We're discussing some of these anonymous coaching comments that are. I'll read you one. Anonymous coaches that are giving these quotes to these publications. He said Alabama's got holes in the defense in 2019. He said I could see them losing 2 to 3 games. Their linebacker, they lost Mac Wilson. They're missing guys up front. Raekwon Davis didn't play well last year. End quote. This anonymous coach talking to the guy. We tried to squeeze it out of it who it was, but he wouldn't tell us a couple of minutes ago, the guy that wrote the publication. But one of these coaches believes that Alabama's got a lot of holes on defense.
Well, you always, I'm always one that's very leery about anonymous sources because, you know this, Ryan. It's people to write stories, and if you really knew who it was, probably not a on the field coach. It's probably somebody that's it's vague. It's kind of like we get this a lot in the NFL and in college. Sources say, and you find out it's just somebody who's a lower level person that really wouldn't know. So I don't listen. It's this time of year. People will say stuff. I don't see with the schedule that Alabama has, even if they play poorly, losing 3 games. There are holes every year that they've got to fill because they lose a lot of players. So, listen, I think, as I've said probably every year, they're going to look a little different in November than they will in September. Those guys will get a little bit better, and there'll be mistakes made early that you grow from because they are putting a lot of new faces and a lot of new spots. But no, I'd take that. I'm not a gambling person, but I'd take that bet any time. If somebody wants to bet me Alabama 3 losses or not, I'll take that on anytime.
100%.
Not this Alabama team and not that schedule. You know what I mean? I mean, if that's just not. I just don't see that. I think the only. You always say anything can happen in maybe one game. You could see them losing one game. You could see them maybe losing the SEC championship game to a team like Georgia. Maybe that, but it would take a lot of games for them to. Certainly not in the regular season. They're losing 3 games. I don't really see that. And even through their growing pains, I think this is a really talented defense. I think they're going to be better defensively than last year, personally. So I would disagree with the premise that whoever said that. I think that they'll be in certainly up front when you have to replace a guy like a Quinnen Williams. You're not going to be you can't lose guys like that and be just as good right away. But I'll start there on the defensive side and say Raekwon Davis is an absolute beast. I think Mathis and Barmore at right end and Young are good players. People, I don't know how much you've talked about it. Unfortunately, I don't get a chance to listen when I'm not on, but I'm sure you've talked a lot about what DJ Dale has done in his early stages.
Sure.
And kind of surprises. That kid is going to provide some depth and is only going to make guys like Wynn and Sopser, step up their game. Brian Ray is going to be a household name. And I could even sit there and say, look, overall, maybe they won't be quite as good, but still going to be elite. I think at linebacker, at Sam, I think Lewis is really good. I think Onama is really, really a good player. Dylan Moses, I think. McMillan, Shane Lee, Josh McMillan at will. I mean, I think there's a lot of talent, but you're going to lose guys every year, and they're due replacing guys at the jack backer position. I think Anthony Jennings, Chris Allen. I think Ben Davis, of course, coming off that shin injury, is going to be really good. I think the secondary is going to be better. Now, I think overall this defense is going to be really good. I think it has a chance to be every bit as good and maybe even a tick better, particularly on the back end, than last year. We'll see. I just think there's too much talent and they're too well coached on that side of the ball to not be a really good defense by year's end. And early on, I don't see anybody really threatening them. I mean, you look at their schedule. I mean, I'm trying to think now. Going the road to A&M, help me here with that. I don't have the schedule, but going the road to A&M,
Yeah,
I don't know. A&M's not ready to beat them yet. LSU's not going to be. I mean, I don't really see it.
I mean, I don't see a team. And we had Danny Sheridan on a odds maker a couple of days ago, and we were talking about the different odds. Like you've got, in the month of September. This is your month of September. Duke. No, I mean it's a 30-something point difference according to the experts in the desert.
God, yeah, they play poorly. They win by 25. I mean, so yeah, I mean it's just not.
Yeah, and then you got New Mexico. Yeah, New Mexico State here. South Carolina on the road, the third game of the schedule.
And South Carolina, not even close personnel-wise. So let's just say Alabama plays a really poor game, turns it over. It's just style points is not all that good.
Southern Miss here.
No, and scrimmage game. Yeah. Ole Miss, right?
Ole Miss here, and then bye week, and then on the road against Texas A&M.
And maybe the first early biggest challenge, but A&M can't hang with them. Tennessee cannot yet. Arkansas cannot. LSU will not. Mississippi State will not. Western. I mean, and that Auburn. No, I don't see it. The only thing that you just can't forecast, that I can't forecast, is a couple of years ago I didn't see Auburn beating Alabama. Then had all those critical injuries at one moment, and Auburn beat them. You could have a game like that. One that if the perfect storm happens. Critical injuries. Now, I'll say this, Tua goes down, all bets are off. Maybe a couple of those games are dangerous that we can. That would be the only thing, but it's not going to be because their defense is not good enough they're going to lose 3 games. If they somehow, you tell me they lost 3 games, then I can tell you, well, Tua went down and they're struggling at quarterback and they're turning it over. And, a couple of teams beat them. I mean, that's the only scenario where I could create that would happen. It's not going to be because their defense just can't get it done.
We're talking to Chris Landry, LandryFootball.com. Now, based on, let's just say that Tua stays healthy and is able to go through the season, okay? He put up yardage last year, 69 completion percentage, 3,966 yards, 43 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Is it fair to say that those numbers could go up?
It could, but I don't think that is something that people should even be concerned about.
Okay.
What I want to see out of Tua as an evaluator on his next level ability, and I think what Coach Saban wants to see out of him is better decision making. All right, so being patient. Not forcing the ball downfield, not always going for the big play, but going for the smart play. Going the check down, the defense will give you something. They will show their hand a little bit pre-snap, but post-snap, and this is where he's had a little bit of trouble, and certainly trouble a little bit against Georgia, and a tad against Oklahoma, and definitely a lot against Clemson, is Tua is a pre-snap read quarterback. So when he sees pre-snap, that's what he's going with. By the way, he had a touch of problem with it against LSU, but it didn't matter because LSU couldn't score to make it a game. I think his ability to make post-snap decisions and hit the check down to take what that defense gives him and obviously play more sustained drives. You hear me beat that over the head almost every week when we talk, and that I think that's what's important is I think the big plays are fine, but I think what's going to be key is if you can be really smart with the football, play more game control, then I think your defense is going to be really good, and I think it's going to only accentuate making defenses have to really play up to the line of scrimmage a little more, and then that's going to allow for more big plays. So I think the overall numbers, they may or may not reach that. I would say this, in a weird way, for the betterment of Alabama in terms of chasing a championship, they probably are going to be better if those numbers don't reach that. In other words, if they're reaching those numbers or surpassing those numbers from last year, then they're basically having to win shootout games. And if they're having to win shootout games, then they're not going to win a national championship. I mean, they're just, you don't do it that way. Then you become a little bit more towards like what Oklahoma does. So anyway, I think that's how I would look at it. I'm looking at efficiency, not the amount of explosive playmaking ability. I think completion percentage is a real important team offensive statistic, but I think obviously where you throw the football to all parts of the field, that is going to have a great deal of effect. So I'm going to look at the efficiency numbers more than anything else, and to see the decision making, and whether that's improved and whether he's become more sound in that. That's what I'm looking for out of him. I know that's what the head coach is looking for him.
Oh, you sound like Nick. That's what I was about to say. I mean, because I'm sure that's probably what he's sitting there thinking too as well. I mean, he's looking, and he's talked about this. I mean, he's talked about some of the things that he wants to see Tua. And, one of the things that was voiced concern a couple of weeks ago is he said that he wants to see Tua understand when to protect his body and not to be able to take those hits. It's not worth 2 yards taking a 245 linebacker coming across at full speed.
That's right. And here's the thing, and understand, and this is part of where you can help him out offensively, is use the backs in the passing game a little more. They're going to be in. Let them, wheel out. They've got to stay in for protection purposes, but, be able to face up. And instead of you running, let the back get the 2 yards. Dump it off to them. You've got to know when to be able to do that. And there's no question that to make Alabama more championship level, which, I mean, I know they're already there, but for them to get back and to overcome what happened last year, to take their game to the next step, and at the same time to, I think, improve Tua's ability to play at the next level, I think that he has to do those things. Protect himself better and to be smarter with the football. A lot of what I saw last year, and it was fun, and we talked about it, but, I'm trying to think if it was – might have been an Ole Miss game. It was one of the early season games. And there's a breakdown, and it's basically just a two-man game between, I think it was Judy and Tua, where they just kind of, did a little side adjustment, and they made a big play, and it was great. Except, I don't know that, and it worked, and it was fine. It was a great throw in the corner of the end zone. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I think happens in other cases is sometimes you get a little bit confident and says, it's kind of like, you use the basketball analogy. Just a good, smart bounce pass or using the backboard, is really smart. You don't have to go up for the whirly bird dunk. It still counts as 2 points. So just understand that playing smart football at the next level, it's not about the plays you make, but the plays you don't make. And I think that he's got to do that a little bit better. And if he does that, he's going to become an even better pro. I think there'll be, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't turn the football over, but he can make better decisions in protecting himself. And I think keeping that offense on the field, it's nothing wrong with scoring quick. If the defense is going to play you that way, make them pay for it. But at some point, throttle it down and have a long, sustained drive. That physically, Ryan, takes it out of an opposing team more than any. You score quick on a team, they can rebound from that very quickly. Get the ball back, let's go down and get ours. You wear them down and you go on a 6-minute drive and you score 7, you take a lot out of that team, a lot more than just 7 points.
Chris, let's go to Georgia. When you look at Georgia, just tell me, is this going to be the same team that Kirby Smart's had for the last couple of years? I mean, they got to be a team that just rides in Atlanta with no blemishes and kind of the team to beat over there? I mean, what do you see in the Dogs?
Definitely the team to beat. Definitely in Alabama and Clemson's class in terms of personnel. Offensive line that is outstanding. Going to have doing some work on them now. And they've got some young guys that have to step up at receiver. They've lost a couple of key guys there that were big-time producers. Got speed it back. This is a really good team. They are better than anybody in the East. Last year they had the really strange game against LSU. They came out and just were flat. So, listen, we talk about Georgia, and everybody wants to, either be negative or either exaggerate it from a positive standpoint or a negative standpoint. Here's the reality. Kirby hadn't been there very long, so there's not a huge sample size. The sample size that we have, pretty good. I mean, they've gotten better as a program. The talent level's great. But we need to see, are they going to have another LSU game again this year? Which, it's still – that game didn't kill them. I mean, had they, by the way, won that game, then we're talking about probably Georgia getting in, don't you think? I mean, if they don't lose to LSU, Georgia probably gets in along with Alabama last year. Remember, there was a discussion about whether they were going to get in or not. But my point is I think Georgia's right there. But they've got to be able to get over that hump and not have that game where they stub their toe. And listen, name me somebody that's played Alabama as well as Georgia outside of Clemson. I mean, nobody's done that. Now, they haven't beaten Alabama. Clemson has. Clemson is, a cut above Georgia right now. But Georgia's played with Alabama and played them well. I don't know that it's, a mental thing maybe with some of their fans. I think that Georgia is in good shape. I mean, I think their program, if you think about it, they've got one of their own coaching them. I don't think there's a job that, unless there's something goes on in the administration that he doesn't like. I mean, that's a dream job for him. He's an outstanding coach at a big time program, and he's young. I mean, it's probably as good a situation as there is in college football when you talk about a marriage of a fit. So I like what Kirby's done, but we need to see a larger sample size of, is he going to continue to have those? So you're going to have at some point some of those games, but the LSU game really surprised me in how they played it and how they got beat. LSU's talented, not saying that, but that's a game that Georgia had more talent. And from a preparation standpoint, they just weren't there, and they got beat. And I thought they were better coached in some of the games that they played against Alabama, quite frankly. So I think Georgia's definitely the favorite, and I'd be very surprised if it's not Georgia, Alabama again representing the SEC. There's not a lot of – we can try to make a lot of intrigue out of college football. There's not. I mean, you pretty much know what's going to happen in most cases. And I think that Georgia is one of the three best programs in the country. They're third, but they're one of the three best. And, they're close enough to where they can change that narrative here in the next year or two.
You believe in their coordinators, Dan Lanning, their defensive coordinator, James Coley on offensive coordinator, a couple new ones in Athens?
I think that Coley will help the passing game a little bit, but both are unproven. Listen, I mean, we need to see it. That's a part of, the changes that take place. Mel was a big part of what they did. I think, Kirby knows and obviously feels comfortable with what they've got going. But to be honest with you, yeah, I like them. But, I until we see it go through a season, I don't know. I thought they did a good job. That previous staff did a good job for the past couple of years. And, I'm curious to see if this will be better or not as good in some cases. I think there's legitimate question marks. Look, I mean, Alabama had it last year, with a lot of changes. Everybody talks about how bad it was. Well, it was so bad they made it to the championship game. But we clearly saw that things weren't going quite as well, and some of it in retrospect. Some of the stuff that I heard about didn't make a whole lot of sense then, and it did now. But there were adjustments that were made on the staff, obviously with Pete Golding taking over the defense. I think that is a big part of why you are successful. Seamlessly replace them, sustained success. When you lose coaches and you can seamlessly replace them, that's key. Georgia's made some changes that we're going to see, and it's quite frankly a big reason why Clemson's had a lot of success, because they've had more stability in their coaching staff. Georgia's had to make some changes, so I'm curious to see how this plays out. I think it'll work well, Ryan, but honestly, I don't know until we get through the season.
Chris, let me go around the national stage. Just let me ask you about a couple of teams here. There seemed to be a lot of buzz about Texas. Can they really be a player in 2019? Can they make a run at college football playoffs? Do you see them with the quality of personnel to get over that hump that Texas fans want? Can they be a part of the conversation?
Well, listen, if you win the Big 12, and unless you've got 2 or 3 losses, you're going to be in the conversation. So I think they're in the Big 12 race. I like what they're doing. I like how they're trending on defense. They're the one team in that league that has some pretty good defensive personnel that can play defense. Now, remember, playing defense in that league, maybe giving up 28 points a game, and that's pretty good. I like where they're going. Do I think necessarily this year? I'm not sure. Do I see Texas as a playoff caliber team? No. But I think there may be a couple of years away from that if they continue trending in this direction. But because I don't see them going through the Big 12 unbeaten, or just with one loss. I see a couple of losses along the way, but if they get through with one loss, they could certainly be one of those teams. They could be one of those. I mean, they could replace Oklahoma in that spot. I just don't think that they're quite ready now. Oklahoma will take a little bit of a step back on the offensive line. Great offensive line last year, replacing 4 of those guys. But they've got a lot of playmaking ability on offense. But I still defensively, Alex Greenwich is going to do a good job with their defense. But I don't think they have the defensive personnel. So I like Texas what they're doing defensively. That's what I'm impressed with. But they're not there yet. They don't have enough personnel to run all the things that they want to do defensively. And Ellinger is a good quarterback, a heady leader. But no, I don't. I think that there's a clear separation among, when we look at Clemson, Alabama, Georgia. I think there's a clear separation with the rest of the teams, and there's about 10 teams that you can throw in there and say, all right, who might make a run? You want to throw Michigan in, you want to throw Ohio State in, you want to throw, you can throw some teams in it, but quite frankly, they're distant from those other 3 in my view.
Hey, Chris, spend a couple of seconds here, a couple of minutes talking about LandryFootball.com. It's an awesome website, a great content you guys are putting out, a lot of audio, a lot of podcasts, a lot of conversations around the game that we love so much here in T-Town. Talk about LandryFootball.com.
Well, we appreciate it. Obviously, what we're focusing on right now is breaking down college rosters, and we're team by team getting them up there. You get a breakdown of the team, kind of an outlook of the season, but breakdown position by position, grading the players at each position. So you see how the players are graded, how many blues, how many reds, how many purple graded players you have, and what those grades mean. It gives you all of that. So we're excited about that. We had Alabama's one of the first that we had up, and we've just cranking them out. We're going obviously doing that for the NFL as well. We're going to start that in June, and we're going to work our way through. But you mentioned something we're proud of is our podcast. Got the Landry Football Podcast every Tuesday and Thursday. But every day now, every weekday, we've got an SEC podcast. Talk SEC football 5 days a week. You can catch that. We got a Big Ten podcast as well. We're looking into maybe doing more conferences as we get maybe more commitment from the business side of people that want to get involved. We're looking to expand that. But we've got right now SEC and Big Ten podcast every weekday. So check that out. And we've got a national college football podcast, a national pro football podcast, take you inside the film room. And those podcasts are all free. So you can go to LandryFootball.com and you can find it. Also, wherever you sign up to listen to your podcast, you can find it there as well. So don't miss it. We try to profile different. We have a film room segment. We'll talk about different players, the different teams or coaches, and we spread it around. What's going on around recruiting, which is big this time of year. So it's football all the time at LandryFootball.com. There is no off season. This is a busy time. breaking down rosters, breaking down recruiting, getting ready for the football season. Just like the college programs and the NFL teams do, we do it for you so you're better prepared for the football season than ever before. You can follow me on Twitter at Landry Football, Facebook, Landry Football, other ways to check in with us. But check us out at LandryFootball.com. Again, a lot of free stuff. And if you choose to be a member, it's very, very affordable. For example, it's close to 58%, almost 60% off for a year membership. So for $49, you get a full year of all these breakdowns, all the football season film room breakdowns, all recruiting, all next year's draft, all year long. So it's a great opportunity to check it out, take advantage of the discount if you want to join the membership part.
Chris Landry, LandryFootball.com, LandryFootball.com. Chris, as always, I hope you dominate the grill this weekend, and hopefully you enjoy some time with some family, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday, man.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.